have Tony Bela with Infographic Tony with us. So he'll be joining us this morning as we talk about his work. And I'd like to start with welcoming him here to Future Astronaut. And I guess I'd like to talk with you a little bit about how you got started. And everyone's excited about your graphics. You see those infographics out there, and they're
Yeah.
they inspire a lot of people. So I'll let you talk,
Well,
do most of the chatting.
I tend to ramble on a bit. So if
That's
I
okay.
veer off topic, recorrect me.
Yep.
I
I'll
did
roll you
do
back
an
in.
interview I did an interview recently, and I rambled on so much that every time I did have what I thought was COVID.
Mm.
That said, but I started rambling on, and every time I kept rambling on, I literally forgot what the question was. But anyway, so yes, my name's Tony
Hmm.
Bela. I I've been a graphic artist for what 30, 32 years, 34
Hmm.
years.
Yeah, you've
I
been a
stopped counting.
award winning graphic
Yes.
artist. Hmm.
So the best way. So I've won several state awards
Hmm.
and been nominated for what we. Oh, by the way, if you haven't already worked it out, I'm not American. I'm Australian.
Hmm.
A lot of people don't realize that about me. By the way, they just think I'm just. Actually, a lot of people think I work for NASA or SpaceX when they see my work. It's
Yeah,
quite amazing. They just go, "Oh, I thought you worked for SpaceX,"
that's
and
right.
because you're
That's
doing all
right.
this stuff. Um, so I've already forgot the question, but
That's okay. So, so tell us about your relationship and how you got involved with doing this type of infographics and this type of illustrations versus the ones you've done in the past.
well, I've always loved the detailed in graphics and
Hmm.
or relaying information that's within a graphic.
Hmm.
And I started working for a newspaper for that same when I was 17, and I
Hmm.
worked there for 32 years as a graphic artist. The type of graphics that I did weren't always obviously my choice. They would be disaster graphics, a lot of disaster graphics. So it was I'd have a day to kind of put these out and for the public to see. A lot of things like plane crashes. I was there for what was it? I did the graphic on for a front page newspaper for Columbia. That
Hmm.
was an
Wow.
early graphic I did. So I was already doing graphics
I actually
quite a few
watched that
years ago.
unfold real time.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
what the
oh,
at
standing outside, watched it
wow.
unfold. Oh
Okay.
yeah, yeah, it was
Wow.
quite a impressionable moment in my life.
I one of the things. I mean, the iconic thing is always the plume as it explodes, but the thing that always stood out for me was just seeing the reaction of the crowds, and you're just looking and you're seeing these people, and you're going, is that one of the husbands and wives and
Hmm.
children? It was hard. Anyway, they're the type of graphics I did, and they're not always a positive thing.
Hmm.
Anyway, I've been doing that for, as I said, for what 32 years, and a moment of clarity when I thought newspapers probably aren't going to be around for that much longer,
Hmm.
and I just hit 50, so I figured I've got to do something that was possibly more important for me in my
Hmm.
life and offer something different. And the work was drying up. The type of work I was doing wasn't that interesting.
Hmm.
And at the time, I was actually told, and I'm still constantly told this, but I was told that infographics are a dying art. And the odd thing is when I do my space infographics, people go, oh, "It's great to see these because no one does this sort of stuff anymore." Well, I never actually thought it was a dying art.
Hmm.
I never viewed it that way. So there was uh, uh, a surprise to my behalf for a career
Hmm.
that I'd spent so much of it cultivating. Um, but I just thought I'd want to do something for myself. So an opportunity arose where I managed to get what we call a redundancy. I'm not sure what you call it in America, but you get paid out for the time you'd served at your job, and they no longer needed you.
Yeah,
Anyway, so that
it's
was
called a
just
severance package
before.
here.
Yes. Oh, so, yeah.
Okay.
I wasn't exactly fired. I just was not needed.
Or
And I've
early
had,
or early retirement package is another term
oh
that they use
yeah,
here.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Retiring at 50. That was never in the cards for me. But
Hmm.
um, I was so I thought I need to create a portfolio for myself at 50 and I was still very fired up, and I still am.
Hmm.
And I know I needed to create a portfolio maybe that was beyond newspapers.
Hmm.
And so I thought the perfect opportunity was the anniversary for the Apollo 11 um, uh, was coming up, for 50th anniversary. And so I thought I'll give myself 4 months or
Hmm.
3 months and see what I can do if rather than a day, because most of the, you got to remember, most of the graphics, and a lot of them are on my website, the newspaper work I did. People are quite surprised I had a day to do these.
Hmm.
I didn't have much time. Well, 6 hours between when you find out a news event
Wow.
happened. But so I thought I'll give this, and I surprised myself. I probably did this poster. I wanted to be of National Geographic quality or Time
Hmm.
magazine quality. That was my benchmark, probably National Geographics. And so I probably completed it in about 2 months,
Hmm.
and thought I'll do a little bit of a shop around, and it was quite successful. I sold it in local museums. It's actually sold in a poster shop, or in the gift shop in Huntsville at NASA,
Cool.
which was great. Um, through a friend that works there, and it was successful. And I thought, oh, now what? I thought maybe I'll do a history of space, and I'll
Hmm.
continue along that path. And so I did the next Apollo mission, and then something interesting happened. Was I found out about SpaceX. I was not that. I've always been a space fan, but I was always more space history rather than
Hmm.
what was present. Even at the time, I probably didn't appreciate the shuttle as much as how I appreciate it now.
Hmm.
I love that. You can still call it a dinosaur.
Hmm.
It has its haters, but
Hmm.
I really like that those eras, and they were important.
Hmm.
Um, but I so I started doing some SpaceX illustrations. Then I got on to he's become a great friend of mine. Some of your viewers might
Hmm.
know Marcus House,
Hmm.
and he helped me along the way. He's constantly guiding me
Hmm.
through and helping me a lot with the work we do together. And a few other people, Tim Dodd,
Oh yeah.
I've chatted a
Every
few
astronaut.
times with him, and Felix from
Hmm.
What About It? They're probably the two
His
close,
birthday is just
but I've
yesterday.
intertwined. Yeah, he was. Yes, I sent him a birthday wish.
Hmm.
Yes, so it's amazing what I discovered, and you'll find this with any any let's say fanatical kind of group of people. There's a closeness that everyone, a bond that everyone has, that they're like that you really feel like you're sharing something special.
Hmm.
And I guess it's my way. I've have this ability to be able to possibly share my passions, not just my passions, many people's passions, and certainly uh, push that envelope of infographics, and
Hmm.
bring them back into the public limelight. And I guess, yeah, just kind of uh, bring that attention to people.
Hmm. So
Something that's yeah.
no, that's okay. So you've done historical graphics. Which one is your favorite? Is it the Apollo 11? What's your
Up
favorite graphic?
So Apollo 11 probably was the graphic. I would call them infographic posters. So
Hmm.
everything all the graphics I do, I have this idea that they should be printed.
Hmm.
I have that in mind. I'm from an old school print, even though they're all digital, and even though and many of them I haven't seen printed, especially through
Mhm.
COVID. So I don't
Mhm.
go down to the local print shop and see them printed. But my intention is that I envisage them as posters on a wall,
Mhm.
and which they can just as easily be viewed, and most people will view them digitally on the screen.
Mhm.
With my favorite work, I mean that was a special moment.
Mhm.
But I'm honestly, I'm going to be really honest with you, and it's advice that I tell people. My favorite my favorite job is the one I'm about to do. It
Mm.
really is,
Okay.
and that's not,
It's what
and
it's
that's not
perennially.
being specific. Yes,
It,
that's not being
it,
specific. It's I really like, and my ego allows me to really enjoy the graphic I do. I
mhm.
enjoy it for that small brief period of time, maybe a few days once it's complete, and
Mhm.
then I move on.
Mhm.
And I don't know how to
And
explain that. I don't. I try and move on. I'll revisit it. So
mhm.
my approach is to update graphics. So
Mhm.
with space, for instance, with SpaceX launches, what I would do is how the event is going to happen,
Mhm.
do the graphic, and
Mhm.
then once I've got all the figures for actual separations, which and certain events, how it unfolded, I
Mhm.
then do a historical version of
Mhm.
that. So
Cool.
that's the one you kind of want to keep,
Mhm.
because that's the one you want on your wall of, like, say, demo two,
Right.
when they launched, when they came back. You don't want to put up a poster on your wall that says they're going to go to. So
Right. That's true.
that was an interesting dilemma, and that was something I never got to do, and you don't get to do in the publishing industry. You don't get a
Right.
second chance at things. But I'm my own editor. Well, actually, my audience is my editor, because I
Right.
encourage feedback.
Mhm.
So I'll generally post. If I'm not posting it live on Twitter, I'm certainly doing it on Discord, and amongst my peers. I'm constantly posting and getting feedback
Mhm.
to improve the graphic. Like the current, there's actually one I'm working on at the moment, and I'm working with Bill, who's over at Lunar Caveman. A few people on Twitter might know of him,
Mhm.
and he's a very informative guy. And we're working together right now on one. It's just comparing. Oh, it's not comparing. It's showing all the spacecrafts that are going to be needed for Artemis 1,
Okay.
and or for the Artemis
Or the
series. So
street. Yeah.
so yeah, and that's a lot of fun, and that's a lot of to and from. He just told me some information that I got a few things totally wrong, and
Mhm.
so I'm like going, oh, should I really change this? Do I have to change it? And I'm going, in the back of my head, I'm going, yeah, I got to change it.
Yeah.
Being a perfectionist,
Mhm.
yeah.
Do you do this? I know you work with a lot of folks like uh, within the space industry. Do you do this commercially for others, for
Yes, yeah.
corporations,
It's
and because I do
it's
see infographics. They're not. It's not a dying art, because I
no,
see them.
no.
At different organizations, ULA, for example. Tori will put out infographics from time to time, and I'm going, well,
Hmm.
that was quite informative. Sometimes just something can take a
I
complex topic and make it so crystal clear when it's visually presented.
I've had Tori comment on a few of my graphics,
Hmm.
and and with the wishful thoughts of, oh, maybe you need an artist to work for you, but
There you go. I'll put in
that
the
so
plug
far
for you.
hasn't happened. Yeah, yeah. It's same with, so I've done work for NASA, but indirectly via third parties, that
Hmm.
because NASA uses many contractors to do their
Hmm.
work.
Hmm.
I've not laid claim to actually getting a physical paycheck in any way from Elon Musk. That is, being Australian, I probably wouldn't get. He tends to, which is fair enough. It's employing Americans, and I'm fully fine with that.
Hmm.
I'm doing what I'm doing because it's something. It's my choice.
Hmm.
It's something that I feel passionate for. There is no rhyme or reason really as to what graphic I do next.
Hmm.
It's generally what's on topic right at this moment. And um,
What inspires you as well, right? Doesn't
yes, yeah,
Yeah,
and there's certainly I don't. eh, SpaceX really is inspiring. It's inspiring many,
hmm
and And I would love Jeff Bezos and his whole Blue
Origin.
Origin to be that same type of powerhouse of inspiration. But I, I'm sure it has its fan base that is, but it just doesn't. I guess it just doesn't
I
have
think
that
people like
passion.
this. I think people like to see things done, right? Even if they end in in a fireball, for example, down in South
Yeah.
Texas. I think people like to
Well,
see things done, and knowing that there's progress proceeding, and that's hard to do with Blue Origin because they're so secretive and they keep to
well,
the vest and
I think you're 50% right. I mean, I'll put it to you this way: when with with a lot of the operations, obviously we still don't know what's going to happen with Boca Chica, and as far
hmm
as flights, and I'd imagine it'll always still have construction. Who knows?
hmm
But certainly they don't have as greater issues at the Cape. And with the construction of everything that's going on in the Cape, we're going to be very restricted as to what
hmm
we see live. I
hmm
know some people that work there, and even photographic wise, that they've got to be very careful what they photograph,
hmm
which is fair enough.
hmm
Otherwise, they'll get their press credentials taken away.
hmm
We're probably going to not have that daily kind of fix. You'll certainly get YouTubers all talking about it and feeding and grabbing everything they can, but
right.
you probably just won't have that detail of campers all along the side of the road just
Yeah.
staking out. But
Yeah.
but now saying that, I don't think that's going to change anyone's passion for SpaceX because
No.
they don't get that daily fix. I think there's a mindset. It's a different mindset of the way Elon Musk runs SpaceX, I guess. Um,
Yeah.
we all know he must be a pretty tough guy, tough boss, but you all
hmm
kind of, I praised. I'm an Apple person, so I praised Steve Jobs.
hmm
Like him or hate him, he had some major issues, but you couldn't deny his brilliance. But
hmm
anyway, um, I will go back to one second though. In regards to my favorite, the Apollo 11 poster there was something special about that because Apollo has always been at my heart my
hmm
favorite space mission.
hmm
But I spent 3 months working on that, and I realized that I'll never be able to do that ever again with any job. So the next job I did, which was the large job, which was my first SpaceX job, which was Demo 2.
hmm
Um, that I need to prove something to myself. So that took me 2 weeks to do because
hmm
that's then feasible as it needed to be reflect on if I work for someone, I can't spend 3 months on doing a job like
Right.
that. two
Right.
week two and the money just wouldn't be worth it.
Right.
The passion's there. So there was something I really enjoyed about doing that, and I got to learn a lot about Apollo
hmm
and the 400 plus thousand people that across America that put this thing together. It's something really special for
Right.
me personally,
Right.
and I don't know if a lot of Americans realize how it was that passion is a worldwide feeling, not just
hmm
makes me proud to be American, even
Yeah.
when I'm not American. That's what Apollo does for me.
Well, fortunately, we had we did have the 50th anniversary, and a lot of countries commented on that 50th anniversary and showed
Yes,
you got a lot of media coverage during that
I
50th
won. I
anniversary.
won an I won an award for that in Australia when that poster. It was published, ironically, in a rival newspaper in Sydney that
hmm
that I no longer that I never worked for. It was published
Okay.
as a poster in their newspaper, and it was promoted on the front of their paper. So it was a
Mm.
big deal. It was a big.
Right.
There was no people, all the newspapers, magazines. They did lift outs, and
hmm
it was celebrated. unfortunately, I think it reflected very much like the real space time of the times. I mean, I was only a little
Hmm.
when that happened, so I don't remember any of the missions. I think I
Hmm.
was 3 when the last one went up. Um, I think they all suffered from that. There was a lack of interest that had dropped off on those missions because it became space became routine, I guess.
Right.
And if they had have known we were never going to go back there again for another 50 years, and there's going to be a lot more than 50, or not a few more years than 50, hopefully, only a couple more years.
I, I don't think
Uh,
Werner von Braun would have proposed a space shuttle if he would have known that we would have been locked in low Earth orbit for 50 years.
or
Because we,
proposed a shuttle. Yeah,
uh, y- you
that
know,
was that was a
bec
criticism I'd heard of many people with the shuttle was it being a low Earth orbit um,
right,
device
vehicle.
that just service the space vehicle that service the space station
Well, that
mainly.
really wasn't his envisionment, right? Werner von Braun envisioned a vehicle that could fly routinely.
Yeah,
He envisioned it like as a semi truck, right? That could
right.
haul things to orbit and fetch things back from orbit. And he kind of and they did that early in the program, right?
Hmm.
They did all those types of missions early in the program, but instead it became very expensive program, wasn't routine, and
Mm.
it had Challenger, and then that slowed it down and caused NASA to become cautious. Um, and then you had Columbia, which really was the end of the shuttle program, right? That was the beginning of the end of the shuttle program.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah,
the first accident, Challenger, was an accident of management, whereas the second um, accident was an accident of design and management, right?
yeah, yeah,
So, yeah, I look at the shuttle in that way as well. I kind of go, wow, it had so much potential, but it didn't happen. And it did build an international space station, right? Without it, it wouldn't
yeah.
have happened.
That's true.
So,
I think I, I think the one of the things that always I felt was went against it was the fact that you had to get this 70-ton vehicle into
hmm
space
hmm
that there was only you had to get that weight into space for no other reason than to get the payload that was inside it into space. So you
hmm
already had to just empty. You had to get 70 tons into space.
hmm
That was it. Just seems yeah. It just didn't seem like a good kind of plan. But
right.
I
Well,
know I'm causing
I,
I'm
I
by
think we can
talking
always
about this I know.
look back through 2020 vision, right? We can always look
Oh yes,
through a rear view mirror in 2020 vision, and it's uh, that's that's a interesting time, and I think about it quite a bit, and the opportunities lost, right?
yeah, yeah,
Not only the two accidents, but the opportunities lost. Um, so Starship, tell me about your how I see infographics coming out on Starship routinely. What are
yeah,
your
yeah.
how do you what's your thoughts on that? What's um
Well,
either
it's got me
good.
yeah, it's got me very excited. What I I think what it's also got is so many other people. The whole point of the whole thing of reusability. That obviously is the
I
key.
see the model behind
And
you.
it's just, yeah, where's that of
There it is.
oh yeah, that's not as I don't have a Starship model. I do have that's my
Falcon
Lego
9.
one that I made of
Oh,
Falcon
okay.
9.
Yeah.
And uh, there's uh, there's this was from a guy from the internet that gave me this. I did
Yeah.
did some work. Now this is a beautiful 3D model that
Wow.
that's available on the internet. I haven't quite got into 3D model making, and I haven't got a Starship yet. But, I there's just so many exciting things. Like it feels like it feels pioneering. Like we
Mhm.
don't know if it's even going to work. I mean, on
No.
paper, I guess it all I mean, every step of the way. I think it's most. I would probably put bets down that it will work. My
Mhm.
my biggest my biggest thoughts and the difficulty, because he's always there's these radical decisions that are constant. Especially there was this period of time where every few weeks Elon was saying, we don't need landing legs. We're not going to do. We're going. All these ideas seem quite flippant. I
Mhm.
do question how flippant those were, because I'd imagine that when they built the tower, they built the tower and they started it with the idea of catching the rocket, and they just
Mhm.
weren't revealing that information. Um, I know that was a later thing, and that just tore everyone up on the internet.
Oh
Everyone was
yeah.
just kind of going, "You gonna what? You're gonna catch it?" Funny enough, I've been meaning to do it. Almost requires a cartoon, which I do
Mhm.
cartoons as well, but a cartoon
Yes.
uh, of the throwing the recently a few months ago that I'm just trying to remember who the accelerator that throws the spaceship up into
Oh yes.
space,
Yes. I
and
I
I
I
wanted to
don't.
have on the
You're gonna have a starship do that, or what was gonna come
yeah,
out?
no. I figured doing that, and at the other end, being caught by like they're playing, father and son are playing baseball with each other and throwing the
Mhm.
ball. One's playing catch, the other one's throw. But
Mhm.
look, the catching part. The good thing is, I mean, if it doesn't work, that's not the end of Starship. You
No.
know, if it doesn't work, it's a bold plan, and I think it's possibly it's high risk. I think, uh,
It,
and I yeah
well, and of course, everyone on the internet tell you how much you're wrong when they say that. But I
oh
agree
no
with you.
I know I want them
Uh,
to succeed, and I'm championing them
well, and
to
you
the
can look at
bitter end. But
SpaceX. One thing is SpaceX, in my view, will try something, right? They'll try something crazy, catching fairings on a parafoil on a high-speed boat with a net, right? They'll try something
yeah,
crazy, um, and
yeah, just
and then if when it doesn't succeed after a long period of time, they say, okay, we'll just fish them out of the water. We can fish them out of the water, and that works just as well, and we're able to
yeah,
refurbish
because
them
was
and put them
it
back on the aircraft.
didn't they work out that in the end the refurbishment was probably about getting close to the equal what it cost to retrieve them, and with the boats going out, I guess all the deck hands paying them and having
Oh
these
yeah.
boats,
Well,
it
they
was
still send boats out. They still send out boats to
mm.
fish them, but there's low speed boats. They fish them out of the water. They bring them home. So,
And
it's
then
a different concept.
then you get people all wanting to do a similar their own idea. So you got
Hmm.
rocket labs who want to capture their rockets with helicopters,
Right.
which is uh, which
That
is
sounds
not an
crazier
I
to
think it's
me
an
than
old.
that sounds crazier to
I
me
think
than
I think the
catching.
idea is between. I've been meaning to do a graphic with it, but I think it's the idea is two rockets with a cord between them. Sorry, two helicopters with a cord, and I think that's how it's caught.
Mm,
I'm not entirely sure. That's why I got to do a graphic. I've got to do the
mm,
research. So that's one thing with my graphics is they require a lot of research,
mm.
and and part of me goes, oh, I wish I could just have someone else do this. And I'm working in partnership with a few people I have in the past, and currently I'm working with Lunar Caveman
Mm.
on some projects. Uh, but at the same time, the research is important for me, not firstly because I want to know.
Mhm.
Secondly, it's important for me because I learn the things that I need to learn to make the graphic better as well.
Well,
So I learn what, yeah,
and then you boil it down into something that people, like I said, you can just look at it and say, "Oh, that is what it's all about." That's what they're trying to accomplish. And it's such a very important role that you play.
well,
And
so my
and
my
peop
yeah.
and keeping people inspired, in my opinion.
I do get a lot of feedback. Many people say how it makes their enjoyment with their kids and explaining what they're about to see, especially with demo 2 and things that are just historic that dads would and mums and dads were sitting around the TV and making their kids sit down and watch this and go, "You're going to remember this whether you like it or not. This is how it happened." Generally, they like it. And hopefully I'm explaining it in a relatively easy way. My infographics, I break several rules, and I'm not ashamed of this, but
Go
I
ahead.
break several rules with my infographics. And two of the main ones is one is infographics should be simple, really simple, and visually simple, so that you can look at it, and virtually you should be able to have an infographic done where there are no words and it tells you the information. And I think I do that. I add the information because that's so much fun. I put
Hmm.
everything in it because I
Hmm.
can,
Hmm.
because I don't have a boss, so I can do what I want.
What you want.
And and so I add in all this information. Generally, it's a bit overkill. People do say, "Oh, look, that's not how an infographic." Because when you're on a plane, and the greatest infographic ever invented is that infographic that's sitting in front of you in the plane seat that shows you how to get out of the plane in an
Hmm.
emergency. I can tell you now, I used to take I've got a couple,
So
not
you've
every time
taken
I went
home.
on a plane, but I'd taken a couple home because I loved the design and I like to study it. And then they'd have good illustrations of planes. But I would look for all sorts of sources from wherever I can. But I break that rule because I love the detail. So when I do my infographics, I figured I want to create artwork that people will put on their wall, but not just quickly look at it, because they don't have to get out of a plane really fast. They got
Hmm.
time to absorb it when it's on their wall. It's
Hmm.
possibly on the back of their toilet door or wherever they want to put it, and they're looking at this for hours on end sometimes, or minutes on end.
Hmm.
And uh, I want them to see the details. I want them to see the things that I maybe picked up that other people didn't realize. Maybe about that. There's certain little details, and I learn so much from studying photos and everything. And I love doing that because it's a good excuse to sit down and watch 4 hours of YouTube documentaries on a spacesuit. And
So
there is,
yeah.
yeah.
So how many of these launches do you watch live? Right? How many do you watch all the SpaceX launches? And you know,
Yeah, a couple.
um,
I haven't missed one. I haven't missed one.
uh,
So Marcus House and myself were live. We did some live streaming. So all the
oh,
launches normally
together.
would happen. Uh, what since I
Yeah.
haven't
No, I
missed
know.
one SpaceX. So I haven't watched. I don't watch all the Starlink launches,
Hmm.
and because they're all on YouTube, obviously.
Hmm.
But well, there's nothing that I in the last 2 years. Firstly, because that's become my job. So
Right.
so I'm able to do this at the moment. Still, how much longer I'm not sure. I've got to keep building this career, and
Hmm.
right now, my job in the past paid a lot more money, but the passion wasn't there. This is a passion that I have, and I'll keep doing it as long as I can, and
Hmm.
provide. I'll always provide my work in some form or another for free. So what people don't realize when I put it up on Twitter is I'm putting the largest file I can put up on Twitter, but Twitter crops it. It
Hmm.
has a cap on
Hmm.
file sizes. Um, Facebook is even worse. So it's sometimes those graphics are unreadable. So
Hmm.
um, I didn't realize this for a long time. So I just assumed that people could read them, and
Hmm.
then they go, "Oh, great art," and I'd get great comments, and then suddenly, shame I can't read it.
Hmm.
But anyway, that so I'll always provide, but I have a Patreon where I put 300 megabyte files up and everything, or on my website that 150 megabyte files. Turns out, and I thought, turns out you can do pretty good print from a poster that's at 150 DPI
Mm,
or pixels per inch, whichever
mm-hmm,
way you want to call it.
mm-hmm,
Um, Someone sent me a poster. It was great. It's actually was a what was it of? Oh, it was inspiration. It was
mm-hmm,
inspiration for poster.
mm-hmm,
One of the guys, S Padre,
mm-hmm. Oh yes.
that he organized his print, and he went to the launch of Inspiration, and
Mm-hmm.
there
Yes.
he took photos of Tim Dodd, everyone that was there, um, uh, the guys at NASA spaceflight.
Mm-hmm,
Everyone signed this poster, and he took photos. So I did this little collage of them all signing it,
mm-hmm,
and then he sent it to me. He said, "Oh, we're going to send you this." And at the time when he did it, I just kind of thought, "Oh, did you get a bunch of your friends to send it?" Just to sign this, because he said, "Oh, I'm sending you this." I didn't realize it was all
oh,
the YouTubers, all the people that I have huge admiration for,
mm-hmm,
and all my peers. And then he said, "Oh, look, I'm going to send it to you anyway." Because I basically was saying, "No, you keep it. It's more important to you." And then when I realized that I'm going, I know all these people.
mm,
I was pretty blown away. I couldn't believe it. Anyway, that print came up. I couldn't believe it. So the poster was huge.
mm-hmm.
You can't see. It was big, like a poster size, and I couldn't believe the quality of it. So I'm thinking, oh, I'm probably needing to reduce the quality so people can't get as good a prints from this.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably why they're not jumping on my Patreon. But anyway,
Yeah.
look, I don't. As I said, I could just tease people and not put up anything and make people pay, and that's not what I'm about. That's not
Cool.
what I'm about.
Cool.
I wouldn't get those dad emails saying my son has. I sat there with my son, and we went through this launch together, and uh, you know,
Well,
and the pride that he has. Yeah,
yeah, I took my daughter to demo too. So we actually went
right.
and you hear them on the feeds talk about going to a Mexican restaurant that's just across the river.
And
And they're not, yeah, they're not
you
real
went to
rivers.
it.
Yeah, and we went there, went there with my daughter,
Mm.
and they have a patio, and it's on the top of the building, and then the rooms at this place are even higher, some are on that level, but there's a big patio, and it's just unbelievable to see all the people out there that are filming it,
Right.
and you get to look out at this park, which is just covered with hundreds and hundreds of people. They're just all excited, um, and then I took my son to Crew One. So that is just amazing to get to see these launches real. And I can't wait till everyone's able to. I can't wait to get to go to Australia. I'm sure you can't wait to get to come over here and go experience one of these launches for real.
I need to see a launch. I've been to the States a few times, and I was at Kennedy Space Center and the 25th anniversary. Unbelievable! I was at the 25th anniversary of Apollo 11, which I only realized that when I was doing that that I didn't even really think about it. There was events on and things, but we didn't go to any of these events. But and I thought that was 25 years ago. Wow.
Mm,
And then suddenly I'm doing this stuff for 50. But yeah, so I've got all the photos of me in front of the big Saturn V when it was used to be outside next to the outside out in the open air.
mm.
Um, but that, that would be something pretty special to see alive. Like I guess what you witnessed is something. Am I wrong in saying at least since the last shuttle, there haven't been sort of those crowds going to see a launch?
It,
Uh,
well, yeah, one thing I think about the shuttle quite a bit. I think about Apollo quite a bit because um, Apollo 13, the movie, kind of expresses what
mm,
happened between Apollo 11 and Apollo 13, right? The families
the,
all gathered in the room where you can watch the controllers, and there's no live coverage. And
mm,
um, and that's it was always exciting to go to a shuttle launch, and I actually have witnessed one when I was much younger. Um, I don't even remember the number. I think I have the tickets from going because we went to the Kennedy Center, Space Center location, and we watched it from there. Um, and over time, like right now, it space becomes routine. The first time SpaceX landed, I couldn't believe it. I was like jumping up and down. They landed on land. Their landing zone one is just
Mm.
awesome. Um, but over time, like you said, you stop watching the Starlinks. I still watch them if I can stay awake, if I'm
Yeah.
awake for them. But watch them till they land. It's always amazing to me.
But what you're saying though, so in a sense, there can be 50. Say you get 50. Say they launch 50 um, starships over the next 10 years once it starts becoming routine. The one you're going to remember is the 35th one that you went to and you saw live.
Oh
That's going to
yeah,
be the most important one in your life that you
that's
saw.
right.
It's the
In the
one you
first one,
saw. So it yeah,
in the first one,
and
even if I didn't see it real, if
yeah,
I didn't see it live, it'll be the most important one. And that's what's I
yeah.
think so important about like your posters, right? Your Apollo 11
Mm-hmm.
poster. Uh, People kind of forget, and it allows people to remember something that occurred, either whether they learned it in science class at school, or they learned it, or they watched it, as a youngster. Um, but
The
I think
greatest
that's
feedback
go ahead.
I was going to say the greatest feedback that I get is when teachers, quite honestly, when teachers get in touch with me and they say, uh, "We, firstly, I've shown this to my class, and secondly, they said this belongs in every schoolroom in America." And I said, "I'm all for that. I just
Yes,
need to get five cents for everyone, and I think I'll be set for life."
that's
But
true.
if you don't mind, won't take long. But there was a
Mhm.
great story. I was tweeting with a school teacher one day. This was around demo two, and I was tweeting with him, he realized that I was. Oh no, he didn't know I was in Australia. So we were tweeting, and he was in his classroom. So he was chatting. He was getting his kids to ask questions, and I was answering him via Twitter. And then he was so excited, and he said, "Oh, he said, thanks for that. I'll have to buy you a coffee one day." And it's a horrible American accent. I have to buy you a coffee one day, and I said, "Oh, it'll be an expensive coffee. I live in Australia," and he's going, "Oh, really?" And anyway, the next day, because we got Starbucks here, I get a voucher for a Starbucks coffee sent to me,
Cool.
online voucher, and I just thought that was the best story. It was so cool. So
Mhm.
to me, and also my biggest my biggest audience is in America, and for naturally because but it is worldwide as well,
Mhm.
and you'll find that SpaceX and the whole American program has fans everywhere, or as I said,
Right.
all over the world.
Uh,
And we're all as passionate, and we all want to be there, and it makes us all proud to be American.
that's true.
And
When you see
so
that,
we
you
all
see what
feel, yeah.
Elon says that you got to do something aspirational. You got to wake up and feel alive about what you're doing, and
Mm.
and um, one thing that he's able to do is he's able to actually take things like a electric car, right, and make it a worldwide phenomenon. And then he's able to take space, and everyone well, most folks understand um, what the ultimate goal is with electric cars, and I think most people understand what the ultimate goal is of SpaceX. And he you can see that he's trying to do those steps to make those ultimate goals a reality. And I think that's what causes people to get so excited, is
he
the it's the end goal and the fact that he's
he
actually progressing toward it.
he's done something possibly unthinkable. He made electric cars sexy, you know.
Right.
That's that's and in the same way, I think that's what innovators do. I mean, I'm going to reflect back on Steve Jobs here. That's what Apple does and still does today. It makes computers sexy. It makes
Right.
phones sexy.
Hmm.
These are things that are just functional objects, and I guess the function is there too.
Hmm.
We're going back on to Starship, whether or not. Look, I have every faith in Starship. Whether or not all the things are going to play out the way they should, as I said, if the catching arm doesn't work, you'll have a lot of naysayers. See, I told you that it was never going to
This is never
happen.
going to work.
They're just not. They're just not going to do the catching part. They stick
Right.
legs back on there again,
That's
or
right. They'll
work out a
figure out.
different way of it landing.
Right.
They're not giving that one a crash with Starship into the tower isn't going to stop Starship. It
No.
might stop, and I don't even think
Might
it'll
slow
stop
it
the
down.
catching. They'll still attempt it. It might slow it down, but at the same time, I'm still a proponent of having landing legs. I figured we'll just put a little bit more extra fuel and count on the weight to have the landing legs. But I get laughed at when I say that.
I know.
But
And then they tell
I
you
still think,
that how it doesn't work with the diameter of the ship, and yep, I know, I know. I, I,
uh, yeah,
yeah. Well, from my perspective, that it is a unique concept, and there's got to be, as I understand it, within SpaceX, there's a lot of open discussion. It's not like anyone's stifled. If you have an opinion, you can raise it. And
yeah,
so the naysayers, even within SpaceX, have bought into it, at least in the short term. They may say, okay, we may have to put the landing legs back on, but we're going to try it and we're going to go all out to try to make this work. And I think
yeah.
that's what's
The important
inspirational
the
and
important
aspirational.
the important thing to realize is they're not building a machine, a blood test machine that supposedly does 100 tests and only can do two. It's probably a rocket that can do 95% of what they're saying it can do.
Mhm.
But it's just that 5% includes the landing. So that said, I could be completely wrong, and I hope I am. And as I said, I think they're giving it a go, and I just think that's just. I'm not saying it's not going to work. I don't want people hating on me on that.
Mhm.
Uh, I'm all for it, and I can't wait to do graphics on it and showing how this succeeded. And I'll be there every step of the way doing graphics on it
I know you will.
because as long as I can, and help. So basically, right now my plan is to do a series of showing, rather than trying to encompass everything in one big infographic, is to show parts of Starship.
Hmm.
And look, if someone else excites me about it, will be in there with bells on and doing graphics on it. I'm really excited what Rocket Lab are doing and a few
Hmm.
other of the smaller companies are doing. There's a there's a company in Australia that I'm even, like, people ask, suddenly our government are interested in rockets. So there's a local company that I've done some concept work for, Gilmore Space, and
Hmm.
today it was just announced that they got a $50 million grant from the government to develop a
Hmm.
spaceport in Bowen, which is probably about 5 hours, 6 hours from here.
Hmm.
Uh, anyway, we're not going to be earth shattering. Most people won't be interested in what Australia are doing with space. I'm more interested in what Americans are doing with space. But that said, I like to be a part. If I'm in this industry, I'd like to be able to share and be a part of it here as well.
Hmm. Now,
And yeah,
just yesterday, wasn't there an announcement between ISRO and Australia on something? I need to look. I'll have to look it up.
yeah.
I'll send it to you. But I thought there was an
There's
announcement between
there's
Australian government.
constant
Yeah, go ahead.
there is constant, and we do have a lot of arrangements between our governments. With America. I mean, I'll get hate for this from my fellow
Hmm.
Australians, but I always I saw Australians as we're almost like a mini America because our culture is very similar.
Very.
Even the way the layout of our land of building cities in the desert and most of the major cities being well, we got a lot of desert,
Hmm.
but most of the cities, and we have states, and we have so many similar things. We got dollar, except your dollar is better than our dollar. We
I'm
got
not sure
there's so
about
many
that.
things. You just have to embrace the metric. I don't think that's going to happen, but
That isn't going to
embrace the
happen.
metric. No, it's
You
not
know,
going to happen.
in the science fields, it is
Yes.
embraced. Okay, it's just that for for every for the everyday person, it's just
Mm.
so it's going to be hard. They tried back at I think I think
Reagan,
back in the
a Reagan era, I think.
Yeah, Reagan era. Yeah, they tried,
Well,
but
I remember
very
hearing a
briefly.
story that he just didn't get metrics, so he just went, "Well, we're not doing this." That's just a story I remember.
Yeah. Well, I have to continue. I have to translate it back and forth. It's like knowing a different language, and you translate between metric and U.S. measures all the time, and it's one thing that you have to think about. Um,
So I'll normally add both when I do
mhm,
my graphics, but I do notice that SpaceX, when they're doing live telecasts and things like that, they only are in metric.
metric. Yep.
So, and I'm just wondering if they get any negative feedback from the viewers, going, "Why are you doing it in metric?" But anyway, everything they do is in metric.
But,
They
well,
never, and I still, yeah.
Well,
Anyway,
except they tell you the speed that it takes to orbit the Earth, and they give you that in miles per hour and things like that. So they,
okay,
the important, the things that they're trying to relate to everyday Americans, they do
yeah.
in U.S. measures, but um, but for the most part, everything else that they're actually doing inside the company and is all in metric. They're uh, and so that shows you that engineering, science, everything else in the United States even is a metric or metric
Hmm.
oriented. Tell me a little bit about other things you do. You talked about the newspaper, but I know you do children's books, or
Hmm.
at least. So I'd like to just have you talk about what else you do and what's other than space. What's exciting in your life and what's going on?
Well, funny you should mention the book. I did do a children's book. The plan is to do more.
Mhm.
Uh, Funny thing is, that's about space.
There you go.
But
Tie the
there's
two
a
together.
unique little twist there because the particular book called Galaxors,
Mhm,
which is available, I think, as a printable book from
mm,
Lulu.com. But um, that was the toughest thing I've probably ever done. So I did the book about 8 years ago. I didn't
mhm,
publish it. I worked on it for 8 years while I
mhm,
was still at work
mhm,
and on and off. And then I started trying to pitch it about 4 years ago. I think I put it online
mhm,
as it's on iBooks and
mhm,
I think Amazon have it just as a digital form. And then I discovered this place where you can get books printed, um, which is
yes,
on demand, which is fantastic. There's a lot of places you don't have to go through where we go through. And but this book, it's about dinosaurs in space, and
mhm,
it's a bunch of dinosaurs. So imagine Star Trek, but imagine all the crew being dinosaurs, and they all have their particular personality. You can imagine the captain is a T-Rex, but they're done very cute and cartoony like.
mhm,
And I came up with this idea that it'd be again an educational book. So
mhm,
the idea was I would explore the solar systems. Some things were factual, some things weren't,
mhm,
because I think I talk about they have a worm drive on board this ship,
mhm,
and it's actually run by worms that are in a
mhm,
big kind of um, a sphere. The little funny things like that, and but there's a lot of I try and talk about the planets, and the idea was to do a series of books. I've only done
mhm,
one so far, so it kind of ends on a cliffhanger. and that was done. That was done. You know, that's been 4 years on a cliffhanger. Uh, it was just one of those things that when I say tough, what was tough was the sell. And I've been rejected by the best of them, and I loved hearing. Then I'd get the stories of, you know, how many J.K. Rowling's, how many times she was rejected. Keep
Mhm.
going, and it's
Keep
like,
trying.
there's only so many. Yeah, there's only so many rejections you can handle. I did something really different with the book too, which I think, which I couldn't ever really work out why it didn't work, and no one's doing it. I did the book in 3D,
Mhm.
3D, not in 3D glasses. I did the as in the way I did my graphics,
Mhm.
and it was done 3D. It didn't look illustrated, and that was a big negative actually. I was a
Mm.
bit surprised, and maybe um, just couldn't work. I still don't can't quite put my finger on why it's not liked, and why it's maybe because it's just so much 3D Pixar and all that out there that
Mm.
people feel more comforting to see something that's hand painted or hand drawn,
Mhm.
or you know, most of the time it's still digitally drawn. Um, but yeah, so that's a book. I still have hopes for that.
Mhm.
I still think it's a really unique idea that just the right person hasn't seen it yet.
That's
And
right.
I'm kind of hoping, you know, it's still maybe the story needs tweaking. I've got in my head movie ideas and all this. I actually wanted to be my dream was to be a director.
Okay.
That quick. I went from being 17 to 18, and that once I got my job in the newspaper, that dream went, and I stayed in newspapers ever
Mhm.
since. I have played and flirted with doing special effects on a few small budget films and a few video clips
Mhm.
over that period of time doing animation. So I guess it's always and it's not always science fiction related. I guess the nature of a lot of special effects is science fiction related though.
Mhm.
Uh, and but I mean that's the thing is, at the end of the day, my my interest, I'm not sure which came first, my interest in science fiction or my interest in real space. The two go hand in hand, and I think you'll find most fans of space,
Mhm.
like NASA and everything, are probably nerdy science fiction fans as well. I
Oh
don't think
yeah.
that's across the board like that. It's not across the board, but a lot of us are, and you know,
Well,
we yeah.
yeah. Well, and Elon is right. You know that he gets his inspiration
Yes,
from
I
science fiction. Yeah.
I'm a huge. I love how, you know, it's the where he gets his, because everything that these names all, you go, I know where that comes from. You
Mhm.
know, of course I still love you. I know where that comes from. You know,
Yes.
the 42, his passion for everything, Douglas Adams. I mean,
Yes.
I was reading. Well, I'm about the same age. I think Elon's a bit younger than me, but
Mhm.
uh, I grew up on Douglas Adams, like
Mhm.
British science fiction, the cheesy
Mhm.
science fiction, and but Douglas Adams, it was a huge, and some of the Asimov and all these great authors are a big inspiration to me, as
Mhm.
far as as far as showing a future that there's no doubt that that's where Elon, the birth of his dreams came from reading these books. You
Mhm.
know, beyond that, being going beyond our solar system, or
Mhm.
beyond our planet anyway.
Mhm.
So that certainly is a spark. And look, if I mean, he certainly became a billionaire through certain, not just through space. In
Mhm.
fact, that held him back for quite a while. But
Mhm.
you know, if I was given a few $1 billion, I think I'd be spending it on space.
Mm.
Maybe trying to help the homeless a little bit too at the
Yeah.
same
There we
time.
go.
But I think a good portion of my passions would be going putting towards building
Making
for
it a
space.
reality.
And then on top of that, I'm just a big kid at heart, and I
Mhm.
collect toys. I collect Lego.
So there you
I
go.
have a big passion for
Uh,
Lego, uh, and you know, all
So, so, so
these
you,
are.
you keep the Lego company in business, huh?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've got shares without getting a dividend.
There you go.
They got a lot of my money, and I'm never going to see that back. Well, Lego
Yeah.
holds its value, except as a collector, I never sell anything, so
Mhm.
I fail there as a collector. A good collector should be able to their collection should be able to pay for itself. So I do collect, as I said. It's also generally it's science fiction and movie related toys that I
Hmm.
like, whether it's Star Wars and probably Star Wars is big right up there. But Blade Runner is my favorite film personally. Most I don't know why it's such a bleak look at the future, which turned out because it was set in 2019. I think a
Yeah.
lot of people were happy that we didn't have that future by 2019. And that's the
So,
thing with science fiction is most science fiction is from that point of view is a vision of a future that doesn't really happen by the time the dates happen. But
so let's ask questions, right? Star Trek or Star
mm-hmm.
Wars? Star Trek or Star Wars?
um,
Both or neither?
both, most definitely both. I'm trying to think of a clever way to tie this in with so I'll give you a better. So SpaceX or NASA. Now that's how I see it. I love both.
Hmm.
Some people just see the future as being SpaceX, and some people say no, NASA will be the one that'll be around longer or survive longer. I think there's room for both. We're
Hmm.
passionate. We're all passionate.
Hmm.
I can understand. I don't pay American tax,
Hmm.
um, so I can understand the certain amount of dislike or the haters for SLS. I never really understood it fully, and I
Hmm.
think it's part of the culture. But there is a certain there's a group of haters within within the space community that don't like SLS,
Hmm.
and I think you'll probably
Well,
obviously
large
find
group.
there's a
It's a
group of
large
haters that don't.
population.
Yeah, yeah, and I never understood it. Sorry, I understood, but I didn't accept that understanding because
Hmm.
it's like I think I okay. Let's and now we'll go back to Star Trek and Star Wars. I think Star Trek is good science and good science fiction.
Hmm.
Star Wars, to me, is not science fiction. It's set in a science fiction world, but you've
Hmm.
never seen anyone. You would never be inspired by Star Wars, as far as I'm concerned, to want to venture into space
Hmm.
because there's nothing to even. They don't even wear. There's never even a. I don't ever remember anyone wearing space helmets. It's not about the science. It's
Hmm.
about escape escapism.
Right.
Whereas I think Star Trek is inspirational because it makes you want to go boldly go.
Hmm.
Literally, I'm using those words. Which, ironically, I did meet. I've met a lot of actors, and I did meet a couple of years ago um, uh, uh, William Shatner.
Oh,
I'm
cool.
just veering, and uh, and I met him at
Where was that
a
at?
Comic
Where
Con
where'd you meet
here.
him at?
It
Oh,
was
okay.
equivalent. We like Comic Con, but it was Supernova, we
Hmm.
call it. And we got to chat. You paid $80, I think, to get his autograph, but it was worth it. It was, and my son was with me, and we chatted with him, and it was really funny. And uh, he was a bit of a cranky old dude.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, he is on
he wanted
Twitter.
to sign these. Yeah, he wanted to sign these autographs and make you move. You've had your time, now move on, next autograph. But
Yeah.
I met him when he was just 89, so that was
Hmm.
only about 2 or 3 years ago.
Hmm.
I was blown away. I've never met someone like that. I mean, only he could go to space at
Hmm.
90. You
Hmm.
know, he is an amazing guy. You just in real life, you just would not guess him at that age. You just
Hmm.
don't. You know, it's just I don't know. He's just you know some people it does maybe he's had work. I don't think so. And it doesn't look like it though. His face isn't all stretched back or anything. He looks good. He's healthy. And anyway, that was quite inspirational. Then I met the two guys from the two actors, Kerr Duell and oh, I got this wrong last time too. Campbell, the
Hmm.
actor from 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Hmm.
Um, anyway, they were amazing, and I spent a lot of time. I was with my son, and they were also they're a bit younger than William Shatner actually, uh, and
Yeah.
that
Well,
was
yeah.
amazing because 2000,
Yeah.
2001: A
There's like
Space
what?
Odyssey was
Yeah, several years, couple decades apart, right, from being made. So. Um,
Uh, no, about the
uh,
same time. The
was it
original Star Trek series was in the mid to late
60s?
'60s, and 2001: Space Odyssey was late '60s.
What?
68, 67,
Well,
68 it came out, I think.
mhm.
But
But
yeah, yeah.
yeah. Tell us about your son. You just mentioned your son. Does he share your
Oh,
enthusiasm?
um, yes and no. I mean, I've got
Yes.
a son and two daughters. They're all
Mhm.
teenagers now. He's just 12. Um, dad does what dad does, then no, they don't. No, they don't. They're I try to get their interest in it,
They
but
wouldn't
he's
drag you to
way
the U.S. to watch a launch.
no, I'd be dragging them.
You'd be dragging them.
I'll be dragging them, and my son will want to see a couple of monster truck shows and go to a few skate parks while he's there. So
There you go.
that there is a definite difference there of priorities. Um, yes, I'll be spending my time at Boca Chica, and they'll be going, when are we going to leave Boca Chica and get to Disneyland? But I
Well,
like Disneyland too, by the
Disney World
way.
is only about is less than an hour drive from Kennedy Space Center, so you can have
Yes.
both.
Oh well, I remember when I went with my wife at the time. This was 25 years ago. The first time I went to the States,
Mhm.
and we were in Orlando, and we had a 5-day pass for MGM. I think that was at Disney
Mhm.
and Universal Studios and Disneyland. And I remember after 4 days, um, in between that, we went to the Cape and we spent the day, and I was such a relief to not be in a theme park. I said, I don't want to see another theme park in my life. It was like, we got theme parks, big theme parks like that here too, but you don't wait. There's line. You don't have to wait 2 hours, 3 hours for it. It's like you got a bigger population going to the same theme parks
Mhm.
over there. You just a lot. And I happened to go when the World Cup was on, so I had all these Brazilian soccer fans, hordes of them in front of me,
Oh.
racing to the next park, and go, we got to beat the Brazilians and get to the next ride. Uh, anyway, that was funny. But yes, that was a relief to be able to go to Kennedy, because we got to sit on a bus. You went out there. It was It was very hot though. We were there around 4th of July. We spent 4th of July in LA, but I we where I am, it's fairly hot. But are
Mhm.
you in? Where are you in Orlando?
In Texas. I'm in Texas,
Texas.
so
Oh,
so
okay.
I
Well,
actually go down to
you know heat
I
as
go
well.
down to Brownsville from time to time and
Right,
go
right.
check out what's going on.
Brownsville's apparently similar to Florida, is it? Or for Orlando, the humidity.
Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
humid because it's right there on the Gulf, and so and
Mm.
it's different in a way because you don't have Mexico. If when you go to Boca Chica, um, and you go to the state park and you go out on the beach, you drive along the beach, and hopefully if you have a four-wheel drive vehicle, you're driving along the beach, and you come to the mouth of the Rio Grande, right? As you drive along the
Mm.
beach, and there's people from both sides that are fishing in the Rio Grande. Both
Yeah,
from the
and one's in
Mexican
Mexico.
ones in
Yeah, yeah.
Mexico, and they wade into into the river to fish. So
Yeah.
so it's 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 very different that way. In Florida there's a big Cuban influence and so it's a big Caribbean influence of islands, and
Hmm.
so the population in Florida is influenced that way, whereas in Brownsville nearly everyone, Spanish is a second language nearly, and
Right, right.
and you see that in the people who post to a large degree. But then you have South Padre, which is a little bit nicer, which is just north of Boca Chica, and so
Hmm.
it was a beautiful untouched area, and I can see why there's some opposition, you know, to
Well,
that.
it's 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 an untapped area too, like
Right.
not on top of the environmental issues. I guess there'd be some people that say we want this to be a sleepy town, and then there's others which I understand that the mayor, I think, of Boca Chica was on the, we even saw that here, or maybe I just saw it online. I
Brownsville.
get confused because I don't, yeah, I don't watch I don't watch normal TV. I watch everything news
YouTube.
on YouTube,
Uh-huh.
but news feeds and everything from, and a lot of America. I have to keep up with a lot of American news too, just the nature of what I do, and my hours are really completely different to anyone else I live around or live with. Uh, but yeah, he was on I think, and saying, trying to obviously spruce the whole SpaceX needs to be here. This has to
Mhm.
happen. I think it was yesterday or something, but
Well, the
uh,
politicians, and you have politicians, we have politicians, but the politicians there are very supportive of SpaceX. You don't have a lot of opposition, but uh, y- in the Boca Chica, what was called the Boca Chica Village, I can see people, they bought homes that were very reasonably priced for a beach community,
mhm,
and they had a pristine beach,
right,
and
yeah.
and so with very little, before SpaceX showed up there, all you had were people in pickup trucks driving out there to go fishing, pickup trucks and SUVs, and so I
And
can
they
understand
they
that.
didn't they didn't have a voice in SpaceX being there, did they?
No, they didn't have a voice in it. But the politicians do support it. I look forward to going down there. I've been down there. I've not been down there since they stopped launching starships for their suborbital
Mm.
flights. So I've got to get down there and see the tower and things like that. But I love that area. It, maybe it's just me thinking about how much they're bringing to improve the area, the educational system. The I look at that as a positive. Not everyone does, and I understand that.
Mm.
Some people look at
Well,
nature as a positive, and
well,
that feeds you.
put it this way, I guess, with any future plans going to the States, the number one destination for me is Boca Chica,
Hmm.
and then it would be Kennedy Space Center. But
Yeah.
and I'm assuming, I see. I only I've been to went to Dallas, but I only stopped briefly for 2 hours in the airport, so
Hmm.
I didn't actually technically. I
Visit
haven't
Dallas.
technically been to Texas. Yeah,
Yeah, you went American
but
Airlines or someone like that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and so uh, I guess Houston, they don't really talk about it as a tourist center. That if it's big with the tourists, because it's always seems to be, from my point of view, Kennedy Space Center is it, and that is the launch place. But that seems to be what that people go to as far as a tourist destination. I
Hmm.
mean, I would even now include most definitely include, and I'd have friends there in Alabama, so I would definitely go there. And it's the one place where they got the big replica Saturn V sitting out front of in Huntsville
Outside,
there.
and then you had the one
Yeah,
inside there as well. Yeah.
yeah, and
That.
and one of the things is, I know I did a poster series also on Apollo 11, and that's actually, I was really excited. And NASA organized for them, for my posters to be on display in the corridors
Ah.
in one of the buildings there. I forget the name of the building. They call it, but it's where von Braun's office
Oh yeah.
was. So
Yes.
if he had been alive
I,
today, he would have seen my work every day walking past on the walls, which is
I,
pretty
I've been
exciting.
I've been to his office. So
Oh, you have?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well,
Is
not
it
while he
is
was
it set
alive.
up like a? I imagine it's got a perspex glass, and it's
Oh
like
yeah.
not a functional office now. It's just
No,
like
it's
a
not.
historical.
Yeah, it's
It's,
historical.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
historical at this point. But
Uh,
it is. I've been to all those places. The only place that I want to go to go see a launch besides Boca. And
mm,
I'll probably make it out for Crew 4 and the crew launches. I really like to go to those, is something about those folks actually taking that risk, of going out there
Hmm.
and what it means for the future. But I want to get to Vandenberg. I want to see a LZ-4 landing. I want to see that happen. I can just imagine that Falcon 9 lifting out through the mountains and then coming back and landing right there in the midst of the mountains, right there in the
I've
footsteps of the Pacific Ocean.
I've become friends with a guy. He's been to a few launches because it's a military base. I don't know if it's open to the public, certain areas. I think it's very highly restricted. But being where it is, apparently you just can't miss the rockets taking off because
Yeah.
you just see them come up over the mountains like that, as you said. But he's actually been at uh, one of ULA launch late last year and got photographs. So he did some time lapse photographs. He got permission, or that they actually paid him to do it. Some amazing photography, and yeah, that would be an amazing place. That was one thing I also was going to say was one of the things I generally don't do graphics on, and just I want to avoid it because firstly I don't want to put anyone's out in as far as legal issues, but I don't do graphics on military hardware going up. So
Mm.
if suddenly SpaceX just turned into a military machine, I probably wouldn't be doing graphics on how they're going to do peer to peer launches and things like that. I just generally just don't want to upset the cart there, and I feel kind of privileged the information that we do get from outside, and
Hmm.
then we're able to put that. But it has been amazing the people that I've communicated with, and I've certainly there's been many moments where I didn't realize, but I'll be chatting to someone, and then I look at their CV, and they're an engineer at
Hmm.
SpaceX,
Hmm.
and or something, and they're just loving what I'm doing. Keep up the good
Hmm.
work, and
Oh
I
yeah.
kind of go, oh well, they give me some insight, but they won't, but they
Hmm.
really appreciate, especially when I did the Mars was the Mars rover, recent Mars rover. That was something that was pretty special. Perseverance. That was
Hmm.
pretty special for me because the whole process of doing that poster, I communicated with um, on many occasions with the flight and the guidance or the flight engineer. I don't think that's the right
Hmm.
term, but and one of the designers, which they basically couldn't tell me anything because one day I just said, oh, what's going to happen? What does I just wanted to know what the parachute's going to look like.
Hmm.
Little did I know they did have something planned for
Oh
that,
yes,
but
they did.
he said he said because of ITAR restrictions, we can't talk about. I can't talk about that. I can't tell you what the parachute. I said it's just a parachute, but anyway, I understand that. Uh, and it's fine, but that was just private emails or private conversations just through Twitter, and it was great. And then they just said, "We love what you're doing. Keep it up." And I'm thinking, but you could just tell me that, and I could just improve the graphic just that little bit. But you
There
just
you
tell me what
go.
the parachute looked
No,
like.
no, yeah.
But yeah, and that was on several occasions. And the guy that did the microphone has become a good friend. He's actually come up with a little device that he's working on with a group of called an
Oh,
exocam. So
okay.
these are real space things that
Oh yeah.
NASA have. So I did some concept work for him, and the device is called exocam,
Hmm.
and it basically is a device that is really cheap little ball thing that's made out of wire frame with a GoPro, a 360 GoPro sitting in it, and it would be injected off a rocket as it's landing, just crash onto the ground, but film the landing, but
Oh.
also. So they'd actually get some telemetry from it as well because they'd add a few little devices to it where it would um, watch a landing, but also read the dust, the plume that it would, the exhaust
Hmm.
damage that it would cause,
Right.
which is going to be really important for structures once they start building structures, how close they can land a rocket next to a habitat on the especially on the moon. Oh,
Well,
and Mars.
and Mars. If you looked at the Chinese lander, the nice thing the Chinese did was gave they did that perspective that no one's done,
Mm,
right? They had the little satellite that would take a picture of it as it was transiting
Yes,
space and
yes.
things like that, which was it was cool. But they also shared a picture of their lander and where it landed and the crater that it created in its
Hmm.
propulsive landing there on the Mars. And you go, oh, well, there's this concern about propulsive landing isn't limited to the lunar surface, but it's also going to be an issue when we go to Mars. So that's I,
Yeah,
I you know um I wish the Chinese were more open.
yeah.
They're more secretive than the NASA. Um,
Well, I remember when they did they launched their Mars rover last
mhm,
year, and it was launched. Weird. There was no build up. I certainly didn't know the one was happening, and then they just launched and said, "Oh, China have just launched," and I'm going, "Oh, that would have been good to do a graphic on." I'm Look, I'm so busy now daily with doing these graphics. I probably wouldn't have time. There's a few missed opportunities
mhm,
that I wish I had have done graphics on, and one of them being the Webb telescope, which I will still do.
mhm,
I was on holidays at the time, and I think it was quite it's as big, probably if not bigger than Hubble, and it's an
mhm.
amazing thing. We just know not everyone realizes it, and it's probably a real geeky thing too. I don't know how much
Well,
it
right now it's
matters to
geeky
the.
because the pictures
Yeah.
coming back aren't Hubble pictures, right? And when
Mm.
they start coming back and they start blowing everyone's mind, that's when everyone will realize it's out there. But yeah,
And Dart
I, I
Dart
can tell
was the
you,
other one. Sorry.
yeah. And the thing that's got me mostly intrigued right now is the little helicopter Ingenuity that's on Mars,
Mm.
and you just don't think that that's even possible, right? And now you have that. Actually happening, and it lays a foundation for the future. It's such to
I
me. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think the whole Mars rover, which was fantastic,
Hmm.
it got probably in the. I can't remember in recent years other than Demo 2 and to a lesser degree Crew 1 and certainly Inspiration. Though, but those three core missions were just invaluable as far as the PR that NASA would have got from
Hmm.
those missions, because that road, I mean, that was hitting the news here every
Hmm.
day when the helicopter was taking off. Our news in Australia, and I'm sure other places in
Hmm.
the world, it was hitting the news channels at 6 p.m. news. It'd
Hmm.
be maybe half an hour into the news bulletin, but it
Hmm.
was
It was
raking,
still well, that's
and
good.
it was of interest to people, and it really was, and it certainly was to me. And
Mhm.
everyone knew something really, and for something that was a non-human based launch, that
Right,
was a very exciting time.
right,
It was and everything went almost to clockwork.
right.
Everything was and it was just yeah, it was an amazing thing. And it's funny because it's I just don't remember that with Opportunity and the other Curiosity and the
I,
other
I think with
Pathfinder. I do. Pathfinder, I think, was a big deal when it
I
happened.
remember with Spirit and
But
Opportunity because they're twin. Remember they're twin rovers,
mm,
and so is seven the whatever is it 7 minutes of terror or whatever their big
yeah,
video that
7
the
minutes of
NASA
terror.
put out.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
I
y-
did a
you know
graphic on 7 minutes.
did you? That's cool. But yeah, I remember those, and I actually kept track of them as much Spirit and Opportunity as much as I did SpaceX. And I've followed SpaceX um, really from the end of Falcon 1, right? That's when I
Right.
started following them and keeping track of them. Before that, it was Spirit and Opportunity I was following and keeping track of, and when these little rovers, which I think they're meant to last 90 days or something like that, and they lasted over a decade. You know, one
they
had like
they
a little,
they they
one had a
yeah,
wheel that wouldn't turn anymore.
I think they know they're going to get more out of it. They just don't want to disappoint anyone.
Yeah,
it's kind of like your iPhone. It's supposed to only be rated for a meter underwater, but you can take that 10 meters and it'll
there you go.
last several hours at 10 meters.
There you
They
go.
don't want to tell you that.
That's right.
They want to keep that to themselves. But
Uh,
yeah.
so I've had you here for an hour and a half. I want to, if there's anything you want to say to anybody, our audience of Future Astronaut, just see, we are trying to get people excited about space, and you've
Mhm.
done that as well. So is there anything that you want to impart and to us as we close? And
I guess what I'm trying to do is truly inspire people.
mhm,
There's no rhyme or reason why I should want to do that.
mhm,
Uh, certainly I anything you do in life, when you have a passion and you know someone has a passion, you want to go with that person.
mhm,
You know, if you go to a doctor and you don't want to be treated, you want to be treated by a doctor that had a passion, that dreamed of being a doctor. You don't want to get the doctor that was just got straight A's and was the top student in his class,
right,
because he probably doesn't really want to cure you. He wants to
right,
get his new Tesla plaid.
whatever. Yeah.
Whatever. But anyway, anyway. So, but I guess seek people out that have a passion for things. You're going to notice it.
Hmm.
You notice it, and I think that's something that comes across in my work.
Hmm.
It's hopefully I can keep doing it. Um, I'd imagine if it turns out that I have to start paying the bills properly one day, that I would still be doing this at nights and things, because I won't let it go.
Hmm.
It is ingrained in me, and is a big part of that. Even though the passion has always been there, as I said, historically, I've always
Hmm.
been a big fan of Apollo. It's always
Hmm.
been with me my whole life. My dog is named Apollo. He's
Oh,
a
cool.
4-year-old Kelpie.
Hmm.
He was, yes. So he's named Apollo. The kids say, I think I helped name him a little bit, but anyway. Um, so it is. That is, but certainly SpaceX has inspired me. And now, if I can get across to people what they're doing on a far simpler level, which I think I do, and a lot of people will look at that a graphic and go, "Oh, is that how that happens? Is that
Hmm.
when I, when I was explaining verbally to my wife how Artemis is going to work?"
Hmm.
She was going nuts. This is only the other day. She
Hmm.
sees what I do all the time, but
Hmm.
she was going nuts in her head. So she's going, so a little rocket is gonna dock with the big rocket, and your audience knows the story. But it was she just couldn't get her head around it. Then I showed her this the SpaceX graphic they did, and she was kind of getting it. Then I was showing her a graphic I'm working on about it, and she was, "Oh, okay." And I said, "Look, things are still being worked out. They're still trying to how many fuelers refueling it
Hmm.
will require for the rocket to get there. You got to remember, this is taking 100 tons of supplies that it can take. It
Hmm.
probably is overkill for the first mission, but within very quickly, SpaceX they're going to require, and this is where it's really kind of gonna pay for itself, where the big things have to be. A Tesla truck is going to be
Right.
taken to
To, to the
the
lunar
moon
surface.
for sure.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure, we're going to see a Tesla, and it'll have every right to be there because it'll probably function correctly, and I imagine the batteries all work the way they should work.
Well, you see
Um,
iPads on
so
the International Space Station all the time, right? When those astronauts are floating around, they got
yes,
iPads strapped to their legs. So you know,
I'm assuming.
and
I'm assuming an iPad. I've never works in a vacuum, but anyway, if you could
I,
actually, or it has to be housed in something. I'm not sure.
well, and the next mission that the next um, civil mission, they're going to make the capsule a vacuum, right? They're going to
Yes, well,
actually,
they have to.
right,
Don't
because they have no
that
airlock on Crew Dragon.
I did it.
So,
I did, incidentally, I did do a graphic of that suggesting which was a huge success as far as people viewers, but it stirred a lot of emotion. So one of the things, um, if you want to know what I want to leave audiences with too, is one of the things I try to do with my graphics is not just inspire, but to inspire you to research.
mhm,
So I always say, if this interests you in a small way, go out and find the bigger picture. Go out
mhm,
and find why it's impossible that the moon landings were faked. Why it was actually harder to fake it um, with special effects than it would actually do. It would cost more, 10 times more to have
mhm,
achieved that. Find these things out.
mhm,
You quickly discover when you look at the effort that went into making a glove for the Apollo missions. This is what
mhm,
blows me away. These things that we learn. I want to inspire debate. I'll often put up my work, and I'll maybe add a little controversy. So this particular one was I did an airlock on Crew
mhm,
Dragon, how they may be able to do it, and I said put it in the back of the service module area because it's a hollow area. That created it was great. It was pros and
mhm,
cons. People were saying you couldn't do it because it'll affect the abort system. Great idea. Why didn't they do that? And I said, I'm sure they've thought of it. I'm just illustrating it and sharing it with everyone.
mhm,
But the idea is it created debate. And for the most part, Twitter for me is really that's my main platform of communicating. It's I don't get a lot of hate. Like, it's a really, really positive and quite a friendly audience that I have. Even
mhm.
when they get into heated debates, you'll sometimes watch other two people that'll come off
Debate.
one of my and debate each other, and it'll go on for days sometimes.
Mhm,
And it's generally friendly. That sometimes
mhm,
there'll be a little bit, but on the whole, and I think if I help inspire debate because I think that's something that's really healthy for us to achieve. We sh- we shouldn't think about what Elon's goal is and what his end game is. We
mhm,
should and dream. We should take that and embrace that and it be our dream,
mhm,
not so much a shared dream. It should be. We should all, if you're passionate about that, make it work for you and have that passion kind of extend and I guess embrace some of Elon's. And look, I have no doubt that Jeff Bezos has a passion. He's just not a good communicator, But
well, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think he has a passion. I don't know if it's I to me, it's accomplishment, right? It's visible
mm,
accomplishment
yeah,
that it makes the difference between the 2 individuals, right?
I don't think I don't think Elon's excited when he has failure, but he's not. Failure doesn't scare
bother
him.
him. No.
And it's certainly his mantra is like he's explained that. I
Yeah,
mean, to have success, you must have failure.
right,
To be more, the more successful you are, you had to have had more failures to
right,
get to that point.
right.
Um,
And he's
I don't
explained that
think,
really
yeah,
well.
yeah,
He actually got NASA to buy into it, that it was a quantum shift in their
and
thinking.
us,
And us.
and
That's
us.
right.
We've all got our dime. I even got a few Dodge coins, but
There you go.
they're not doing
Me
too
too.
well.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Um,
But that said, uh, I that inspiration. Yeah, I mean, you couldn't sum up any. If I can inspire, if I can have people that inspire me be a part of my life. I mean, several of the people I'm from inspiration for follow me now. That's blown away. And then it turns out that I know, Sian knows a friend of one of
oh,
my relatives in
oh, cool.
Sydney, and knows her brother well. Uh, and it's a small world.
It is.
What I've discovered within the space community, so well, not just any community. I'm sure the group of chartered accountants, they all know each other from all around the world. They're passionate about what they do. Just
Mhm,
find the passion in what you do. I've found the passion in what I've done and what I'm doing. So and hopefully I'm making the world a better place in my small sort of way. It's certainly not. I'm not. I'm not. I'm not a rocket scientist, and I'm not reinventing the wheel. But I'm showing how the wheel was invented and
Oh,
how rocket scientists work.
cool. Well,
So,
I want to thank you for chatting with us. I want you to thank you for inspiring everyone with your graphics. I really think they are inspirational unto
well,
themselves.
thank
So
you.
I look forward to seeing your work, especially work on Starship as it actually starts to unfold. And I hope you keep doing this for many, 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 many more years. So
I
thank
would
you.
hate. I would. You're welcome. I would hate to think I wouldn't be there when the final launch happens.
To
My
Mars,
my my
final
my
launch to Mars,
for the first launch. So
first
my
launch to Mars.
my goal my goal we're not going. Marcus House and myself have talked about going over to Boca Chica, and one of the things is we 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 know we probably can't make it mid-year, but I don't know if it's going to happen then. But I think the more important thing would be to be when the first catch happens, and I say that because you don't just get to see a launch; get to see a starship come back and be caught. And I
Hmm.
think that to me, you get a double bang for your buck.
Hmm.
So going all that way, it's a long flight, and going all that way and getting to see a launch and a catch. That's my goal, and I certainly hope to be doing graphics. I will be doing graphics at least until then,
Yeah,
and I'm hoping I'll be doing the Mars ones and one day
there we go.
doing graphics of rockets that might be landing here in Australia in my
There we go.
hometown in Brisbane.
There we go. Well, you have a great day, and thank you for chatting
You
with
too.
us. Okay, and
Well,
talk to you
thanks,
later.
man.
Bye bye.
All right. Thank you. Have a good day. See you.